Morning and welcome everyone to our Psychology Next Best event. My name's Russell Conduit. I am the Program Coordinator of Psychology Undergraduate here at RMIT University. That means I basically oversee the psychology programs that we offer here at the university. And I'm joined here with Belinda Johnson, who is the Program Coordinator of Bachelor of Psychology, Social Sciences, or Bachelor of Social Sciences Psychology. Sorry, I said that the wrong way around. And today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about our programs, what's unique about our programs, what we have to offer, and we'll also be giving you a bit more guidance in terms of, what type of career prospects there are after studying these types of degrees. Next slide, please. Now, before we begin, I must acknowledge country. This is something we traditionally do at RMIT University because RMIT University acknowledges the people of the Wurrung and Burrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT respectfully acknowledges their ancestors and elders past and present. RMIT also acknowledges the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. We have a commitment here at RMIT to reconciliation. RMIT is committed to redefining its relationship in working with and supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander self-determination. The university's goal is to achieve lasting transformation by maturing its values, culture, policy and structures in a way that embeds reconciliation in everything we do. In line with the principles of Bunjil, we are changing our ways of knowing and working and being to support sustainable reconciliation and activate a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous staff, students, and the community. Okay, so basically at RMIT, we offer an undergraduate sequence in psychology, which is accredited by an external body known as APAC, which is the Australian Psychological Accreditation Association. So there's a course sequence of psychology that you study that's recognised across Australia. And embedded within that sequence, you can study psychology in different ways. You can study it through our Bachelor of Applied Science Psychology program, our Bachelor of Social Sciences Psychology program, which Belinda's going to talk to you more about. There's also the Bachelor of Criminology and Psychology and the Bachelor of Social Work, Bachelor of Social Sciences double degree. So myself and Belinda are going to be talking to you about the first two today in a bit more detail. There'll be other sessions regarding the Bachelor of Criminology and Psychology and Bachelor of Social Work, Bachelor of Social Sciences double degree that you can get more information from in those sessions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Bachelor of Applied Sciences Psychology program. Now, the aim that we have in teaching psychology that we feel is unique to RMIT is we like to seat our psychology teaching in real world practice as much as we can, embedding what we teach our students in real world examples. And as Belinda will explain to you in a social sciences psychology program, and also in all of our programs, we give real world opportunities for our students along the way. And in that, you study foundational knowledge. So generally speaking, when you first start out in our programs, you learn foundational knowledge in the beginning years, and in later years, you'll have more opportunities to apply that knowledge. So you'll learn about things such as psychopathology, social psychology, biological psychology, which is my field, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, and research methods, which I also teach in. So you get a wide breadth of foundational understanding of psychology, which we then have an emphasis on you applying that in various different contexts. And this is where we feel that you will get an edge here at RMIT. Next slide, please. So we have certain entry requirements. For the Bachelor of Applied Science Psychology, there are different entry requirements for the Social Sciences Psychology, which Belinda will talk to you about. But basically, our previous ATAR is listed here up on the screen. And we have basically a requirement of satisfactory completion of mathematics and scores in English. Now, a common question a lot of people tend to ask me, and I'm sure ask Belinda as well, is when people look at psychology at RMIT and I look at all the various options that you have to study psychology, the most common question to me is, what's the difference? What's the difference between applied science psychology, social sciences psychology, criminology psychology? I've got all these choices. What psychology should I do? I guess to preempt maybe those questions that some of you have, is that on this screen here that I have up coded in dark blue and light blue, is the breakdown of psychology within the Bachelor of Applied Sciences Psychology program. Now, the thing I want to point out is that when you study psychology at RMIT, there's a core sequence of psychology that you need to study regardless of what program you do your psychology in. And that's in dark blue here up on the screen. So, for example, if you're doing Bachelor of Applied Sciences Psychology or you're doing the Social Sciences Psychology program, you will commonly do those dark blue ones. So foundation of psychology and principles psychology are common to all of our psychology students in first year. Same with developmental, biological, research methods, cognitive and social. And then in third year, the others that are in dark blue. Now, the idea is that at the beginning in first year, you get this foundational knowledge in psychology. You build it in second year in some specialist areas, such as developmental, social, biological. And then in third year, that's where the application comes more into play. And the stuff that's in dark blue that's coded here, those subjects, are common to all of our psychology students. So what separates, for example, Bachelor of Applied Sciences Psychology from Social Sciences Psychology is the subjects that you pair with it. So there's a sequence of 12 subjects that are in dark blue. And then what we pair with it in the Applied Sciences Psychology program is basically more psychology. Okay, so if your focus is very much on psychology and the scientific application of psychology, this might be the program that suits you. But on the other hand, you might have broader interest in the social sciences. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you on to Belinda to explain to you the differences within the Bachelor of Social Sciences Psychology, and I'll be quiet now and let Belinda speak.
Hello there. Thank you, Russell, and welcome to our webinar session. So I am Dr. Belinda Johnson, and I am the academic lead for the Social Science Psychology program. So I work very closely with Russell and the psychology academics. So probably the question we get asked the most is, what is the difference between the applied science and the social science versions of the psychology degree at RMIT? And I guess the first thing I would say is, as Russell has just explained, the applied science psychology degree offers a depth psychology program where it's almost like you're doing a double major in psychology. Whereas the social science psychology degree, it has that accredited 12 subject sequence that allows you to go on to be a registered psych as well. However, the social science program offers you more of you could think of it as a breadth learning program. So as the tagline here states, because what happens in people's minds is often only part of what can make life difficult. So if we think about things in social science like gender, poverty, homelessness, social conditions, such as living through COVID lockdowns, and all of these things we know can intersect with people's well-being, their mental health. So in the social science psychology program, alongside the APAC accredited sequence, we look at the social dimensions of our lives and key issues in contemporary society. So as it says here, our interest is in that interaction between individuals and the world around them. So what are our social science inquiries about? Well, I'm a sociologist, and so in first year, I run the main course that you do in social science psych, which called Psychology in Society, and we look at things like influencers, fake news, conspiracy theories, how advertising strategies based in psychology are used everywhere from climate change to politics. Now, there's also opportunities to study in areas that are focused on things like sustainability, cross-cultural communication, ethics, power, Indigenous studies. And because the social science psychology degree actually sits with the social work and youth work programs at RMIT, so there is an opportunity to also pick up some social work and youth work courses as your electives. So this, I think, can help students who want to go perhaps straight into the workforce rather than continuing towards becoming a psychologist. Now, in the last thing we do in the social science psych program is we look at another dimension of research. So psychology is very much grounded in the scientific method. And in the social science program, you also learn more about social research and how things like lived experience can get brought into research. And I guess because RMIT is very much about having impact in the world and being part of the world around us, we look at research in terms of how can we use it to change the world for the better. Now, next slide, please. So the entrance for entry requirements for social science psych. So you have last year's ATAR there of 70, and you'll notice the English requirements are the same as the applied science degree, but there's no maths requirement for the social science degree, which doesn't mean you get to avoid the maths of statistics that Russell will be teaching you, but it means that you don't need that as part of the entry into the program. Now, if we can move into the next slide, let's have a look at how the degree looks over the 3 years that you'll be with us. So this, as you can see, this has been set out in exactly the same way as the applied science structure. So you can see all of the dark blue boxes. They're the APAC accredited course stream. So they're identical courses to what you do in the applied science degree. And in fact, you'll be sitting in tutorials together. They're actually taught by, they're exactly the same courses. So what's different then is what you see in the sort of pale blue boxes and the grey boxes. So the pale blue boxes, they are the social science courses that you do in the program. And there's a couple of things worth noting. So firstly, you'll see that most of your social science courses happen in the first year of the program. So that's where there's most difference between the two degrees. And you'll see there's 4 core social science courses, some sociology-based courses, social research, public policy, that look to those broader systems of the world we live in. And you'll also see that you do 2 program option courses. So that's where you can choose courses such as Sustainable Futures, Indigenous Studies, Intercultural Communication, or Languages. Now in year 2, you do 5 of your APAC courses, and you just do 1 social science course, which is more of a depth course in social research, looking at how we can use research to affect change in the world. And you also get to choose 2 university electives, which is basically you get to choose courses from anywhere across the university. So some students decide to choose business courses or media courses, fine art. It's also where you can pick up some social work and youth work courses. And in the third year of the program, as Russell said, that's where things start to get very applied in the psychology area. So you have those 5 courses there. And alongside that, you have 2 social science courses that are really focused on getting you ready for work. So we know that a good proportion of the people who do a Bachelor of Psychology go straight into the workforce after the degree. So at RMIT, we like to make sure that you're prepared to go straight out into the workforce, as well as prepared to move on to further studies in psychology if that's what you choose to do. And part of that capstone course, you can see that one called Society and Psychology Capstone. That is where in the social science degree that you do your 20-day industry placement. So you get out into the world, you get to actually be part of an organisation and get a sense of an industry sector that a social science psych degree can lead you to. And I know that there's a very similar offering in the applied science program. Now, the final point I'd like to make, so once people sort of understand the difference between the 2 programs, the next question is usually, which one should I take? Which one's better? And I'd have to say we're all friends. We work very closely together, and both programs can lead you towards becoming a registered psych. Both programs can lead you towards work in human services or other sectors straight after the degree. And so my advice is always to students, choose the program that interests you the most, because that's where you'll do the best. Thank you. And now I'm going to hand on to Sophia, who's going to talk to you about, firstly, RMIT facilities.
Thank you so much, Belinda, and thank you to Russell as well. Guys, we've heard today about all the wonderful offerings that psychology brings, that RMIT offers. We've heard lots about the fantastic coursework that Russell and Belinda have talked a little bit about. I'd also like to talk a bit about what else, in addition to the coursework that RMIT Psychology offers. And one of those key offerings is the Health Sciences Clinic. As you can see there from that PowerPoint, we have a Health Sciences Clinic within our School of Health and Biomedical Sciences, and psychology is a very big clinic within this broader Health Sciences Clinic. This clinic here has an excellent reputation for high quality psychological services. You don't need a doctor's referral to make an appointment for this clinic. Self-referrals are welcome, and this clinic provides an excellent opportunity for our postgraduate students to undertake lots of their what we call wheel integrated learning at RMIT. For students to, in addition to the skills they learn inside the classroom, to be able to practice those skills with clients in a clinical setting. So that's a really important part of psychology RMIT, and the Health Sciences Clinic is available to students who are undertaking postgraduate studies in psychology, for example, as part of the Master of Clinical Psychology. The clinic, as I said, has the excellent reputation for high quality psychological services, and just recently we have introduced telehealth as well, and we are very, very excited about that new initiative. So within the clinic, the kinds of treatments that we offer treatment for individuals with depression and mood disorders, anxiety, phobias, self-esteem issues. Next year, we'll be looking at introducing cognitive educational assessments back into the clinic. So these are all really important community services offered, because health and well-being is very important. And it also provides a wonderful training opportunity, as I said, for our Master of Clinical Psychology students. So that's one of the work integrated learning opportunities offered at postgraduate level. If I can talk a little bit about the undergraduate wheel. Next slide, please. Thank you. Many of our students at the undergraduate level also undertake WIL, work integrated learning, and this involves, for example, students undertaking a research project where they may work within an organisation, or they may work with a community setting to be able to undertake work on a real world problem. Our students love being involved with industry. They love working either with big groups or on their own to actually solve a real world issue. So this is something that's a key part of our psychology undergraduate degree at RMIT. Sometimes the work is done face-to-face, where permitted, many times it's done online, but either way, our students love being involved with industry and knowing that the work they do has real impact. And some of those connections, I might say, are not just based here in Melbourne, but they're Australia-wide and overseas as well. And our students love being involved. Next slide, please. Okay, they're just some of the global opportunities that RMIT offers. As you can see, they're all around. RMIT, we are very lucky to be at a university that has these global connections with partnerships with over 200 universities around the world, something our students speak very favourably about. I think now I'm passing over to Helen, I believe. Helen will be talking. No?
I think it's over to Russell.
Russell,
Yeah,
over to Russell.
to the next
Sorry,
slide.
Russell. Okay,
Sorry.
yes. If we could move to the next slide, yes, back over to Russell.
Hi. So basically, when you study psychology, there's a wide variety of career outcomes that are available to you. We have basically from graduates at third year, we have a wide variety of opportunities that are available to them because when along the way you build up a lot of skills. You build a lot of skills in communication, and that's both verbal and also written communication skills. You also know a lot about human behavior. Some of the principles by which we do things. And that's really valuable in a lot of contexts, particularly in areas such as private areas, such as business, marketing. There's a wide range of private areas that some of our third year graduates go to, but also in government areas as well. So in human services like child protection and other areas where working with human beings is important. So there is a wide scope of research opportunities for our graduates after third year. But also at the same time, a lot of our graduates also move on to further studies. So that can be basically an honours year and then moving on to a master's program. And by doing that, that's the pathway to become registered as a psychologist. But there is a wealth of opportunity available to you when you take on the path of psychology. And through these different pathways that we offer at RMIT, there's rich opportunity. Next slide, please. So basically, you've heard some opening stuff from me. You've a little bit about the Bachelor of Applied Sciences Psychology program. You've heard a little bit about the Social Sciences Psychology program, and Sophia Zenis, who is basically our program leader at. Sorry, I'm stumbled over my words. Basically, our head of psychology here at RMIT. So you've heard a little bit about it, about our program and what we offer here, but what might be good is to talk a little bit about some of the questions that have been raised along the way. So basically, there's been some questions, and maybe I'll flag some of those questions for us to talk about openly, so we can get a bit of a feel. Because I'm sure there's some people who have asked questions that other people have on their mind. So maybe I'll put to Belinda and then to Sophia. There's a question here about how much time in placement do students spend in the undergraduate program. So maybe if Belinda, if you wouldn't mind answering that, and then pass it across to Sophia, and then we'll get an idea of what's involved in the Social Sciences Psychology program and what's involved in the Applied Sciences Psychology program.
Thanks, Russell. So you do a placement in your third year of the Social Science Psychology program, and it's a minimum 20-day placement, which I think equates to 150 hours. But of course, that It can vary. So, for example, if we have an industry partner in particular that's developed an internship that requires students for 25 days or 30 days, then that we would open that up to students. But certainly you can do placements that are just meet the 20 days. But it can depend on what your interest area is and what type of placement you'd like to take up. Over to you, Sophia.
Absolutely, Belinda. I'll add to that our placement at undergraduate level is really, really important, and it's also really popular. Our students love it. And as you said, most of the students are at third year level and they undertake their placement. It's a 20-day placement, and some students do it as a block, but I would say the majority of students do it over, for example, a day or 2 days a week. And they sort of do that while they're doing their studies as well. And I can say that many of the students love the work they do, so much so that they do more than the 20 days. Often they're kind of really engaged within the organisation and knowing that they're having some real impact there. So third year level is something that it's done 20 days and either as a block or as 1 to 2 days a week over the course of a semester.
Thank you, Sophia and Belinda. Another question I've got, which I think is a good one because it's quite relevant to career decisions and people deciding on what aspect of psychology they're interested in. There's a question here about neuroscience and psychology and what should they do if they're interested in neuroscience and psychology, and what subjects are available to them. So basically at second year, we have biological psychology, which I teach into and is my passion, and that's available to all of our students that do psychology because it's part of that APAC stream, that central stream that all of our students do. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that no matter what aspect of psychology that you want to get into, it doesn't really matter what psychology you do in terms of progressing further, because if you want to become a neuropsychologist, you could do social sciences psychology, you could do applied sciences psychology, you could do criminology psychology, and go on to an honours year, and it's not until masters that you specialised in neuropsychology. So when you learn psychology here at RMIT and basically anywhere in Australia, it follows basically a formula driven by our accrediting body. So the core components you need to become specialised in an area like neuropsychology or counselling psychology or clinical psychology isn't really decided at undergraduate. So maybe Sophia and Belinda might want to add to this, but my suggestion would be go with your passion to begin with. What subjects fit with you, work with you well, that you'd like to pair up with psychology. And it won't be till later on, till you get to honours and masters, that you really need to make maybe some decisions in specialising. Maybe, Soph, would you like to add to that, maybe?
Thanks, Russell. I think you've given a really good overview there. I agree. Neuropsychology is a very specialised field. You've certainly got to be passionate and really want to do it if that's what you want to do. Many students get a taste for it, as you said, at the undergraduate level. In first year, there's a little bit of biological psychology in first year, just to give you a sense of brain and brain structures. And then at second year, as you identified, Russell, there's a whole course of biological psychology, which is structure and function of the brain, and really important, the sort of fundamental brain concepts there. And often students do that course and say, this is what I want to do long term. I see myself as a neuropsychologist, for example, really focusing on brain and behaviour. And to do that area of specialisation is something that you would need to do that, you need to do a postgraduate psychology degree. So, for example, a master's degree in that area. Right, or you might want to do a Master of Clinical Psychology that we offer, and then also sort of work within the neuropsychology area there. But certainly a postgraduate degree is where you specialise and become a specialist psychologist. So if that's what you're thinking about doing, fantastic. We certainly need lots of neuropsychologists, and our degree is a stepping stone to that kind of career.
Another question we've got is, and it's a very broad one, but I think it might be a good one for us to talk about here, is where am I able to study the applied science psychology course? Well, I guess I'll answer that in terms of all of our programs that we offer. The way we deliver our teaching, and something I didn't really touch on in the introduction, so I'm glad that person asked that question, thank you very much, is we deliver psychology in a blended learning model. So what we do is we provide materials online, but we also supplement that with in-classroom activities. Of course, with the current situation, that isn't possible, but when it's possible, what we typically do is we have a combination of both online and in-class activities, because here at RMIT, especially in terms of psychology, if you're going to be learning about communicating with people, we put a priority in people being able to get together and talk to each other. If you're learning about human behaviour, being involved with other humans in the same space, if possible. So at the moment, we have very flexible arrangements where when we run our tutorial classes, so typically our scenario is that we have lecture material that's normally in video form. It can be live lectures, lectorial type material, or it could be pre-recorded lectures, but complementing that is tutorials, which are aimed at applying the concepts that are learnt in the lectorials or the lectures. And that's the type of content that we try to have on campus as much as that can be allowed. And we build upon the concepts that we learn with that. So where you can study it, basically you can study it anywhere. So we have the opportunity for students, if they're unable, if we get opened up and we are able to run our tutorials on campus, we always run an equivalent available online as well. Belinda, would you like to maybe add anything to that in terms of social sciences psychology with the subjects that you pair with the psychology program?
Yeah, I've been answering in the chat. So in terms of your long-term interests, I do think, I mean, we're all being very polite. I would say there are some interests that would better suit you towards being in the applied science program. So, for example, if you're interested in neuroscience, then you're probably better off going with the applied science program. Someone else asked about getting into child services. It's quite possible that being in the social science program would be better for you if you want to take advantage of doing some youth studies or social work courses. So I think it's good to know what you're interested in. And I think you can sort of see sometimes that one program is probably going to be a better match to your interests. If you're just interested in psychology, which I find a lot of students are, a lot of students will start the programs and just say, I don't know if I want to become a psychologist, I'm just really interested in psychology. Then really either program is good. They're going to leave open that option for you to become to work towards becoming a psychologist, or they're going to offer you opportunities to go in other directions as well. So it's sort of a bit of everything there, Russell.
Thanks, Belinda. Another question we got here, and I think this might be a good one for you, Sophia. How long will it take to become a certified psychologist? This particular question's about the social sciences degree, but I think maybe if you could answer that just generally in terms of the pathway to becoming a certified psychologist is the wording here, but I think maybe this person means registered psychologist.
Thanks, Russell. I think it's a really important question to ask, particularly because there have been some changes in the profession of psychology starting from next year in regard to registration as a psychologist. So, for example, from next year on, students have to undertake an accredited undergraduate degree in psychology, such as the ones we offer here at RMIT Psychology. And then they need to undertake an honours degree in psychology. Again, we offer this degree in psychology honours at RMIT. And then to become a registered psychologist from next year, they'll need to undertake a Master of Psychology, again, an accredited master's degree. This year is the final year that the profession has allowed that honours degree at pathway for registration as a psychologist following honours. From next year, it will be students having to undertake a master's degree in order to register as a psychologist. So that's one of the changes that has happened in our profession of late. Thanks, Russ.
Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, so basically, we've had another question, which is a more generic question, and that's about, and maybe whoever wants to answer this one first, what's the difference between psychiatry and psychology? Who wants to jump in on that one? Because this is a question we often get asked, guys. So I'll see who wants to answer this one first.
Belinda, do you want to have a go? Or do you want, yeah?
I think you're probably best placed,
Me?
Sophia, because
Okay.
as a psychologist.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I just, we often get asked that question, and it's a really good question. And I think it's important that people know about the distinction between psychologist and psychiatrist. Let me start with psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are essentially medically trained doctors. So they've studied medicine, and then they've gone on to specialise for a number of years post their medical degree to specialise in psychiatry, where a lot of the focus there also becomes within the treatment of mental illness, also becomes pharmacological intervention. So looking at, for example, medication and what medications to use to best treat particular psychiatric. A psychologist doesn't have that medical training. So while we are experts in mental illness and the treatment of mental illness, our treatment centres around, for example, cognitive behavioural intervention. Okay, so psychiatrists are medically trained doctors, okay, who then specialise in mental illness and focus on prescriptions of medication, which is very important and is certainly needed. Psychologists are not medically trained, but certainly have expertise in the understanding and diagnosis and treatment of mental illness, but the treatment involves things like cognitive behavioural intervention. Now, sometimes I might say psychiatrists and psychologists work together. So while there's an important distinction between the two, many times out in practice, psychiatrists and psychologists do work together to treat patients. So that's that in a nutshell. I hope I've clarified a little bit for people who have asked.
Thanks, Sophia. I've got another question. Sorry, it might be directed to you again. Can you still be a probationary psychologist after the honours year?
Yes, that's a really good question. At this stage, you can be a probationary psychologist after honours year, yes.
Thank you. Okay, we've got another question here, and it's along the lines what are the job opportunities available for graduates after the applied sciences psychology stream as opposed to the social sciences psychology stream? So is there a difference in the job opportunities between the two? I think that's an interesting question. I'll just make a general statement, and then maybe Belinda and Sophia might want to add to that. Generally, a best way to look at that is to maybe look at seek.com. And generally, what I find is employers tend to look for students with that general psychology training, and the types of jobs both graduates tend to apply for and are both suited to seem to be reasonably similar because you've got a similar base training in psychology. But Belinda was alluding to before that, there might be some subtle differences that might get your nose ahead after if you're a third year coming straight into the workforce, that might make a difference in particular fields. So maybe I'll pass on to Belinda to maybe add to that, and maybe Sophia might want to speak to the applied sciences after Belinda.
Yes, I usually think of it as having three pathways, to be honest. So there's the pathway towards becoming a registered psychologist, which the two degrees share. There's also the pathway towards going straight into the workforce. And certainly in social studies, we look at human services areas as probably our main area straight into the workforce. So that's different sorts of jobs in, say, mental health, disability, child protection, homelessness, all sorts of different areas. And I'm sure graduates from the applied science side could go straight into those areas as well. Often it can depend it can depend on sort of the electives you choose, because you can show in your CV that you've got some more specialist training perhaps in a particular area. So that's open to both programs. But it can also depend on what maybe volunteer work you've done, what previous jobs you've done, what placement opportunity you take up. And then the third prong, which we haven't actually mentioned, is that students, there is a group of students who see their psychology degree as sort of a good foundational bachelor degree, and then they go off into other types of master's programs. So we have graduates who go into Masters of Education, Masters of Social Work, specific other types of therapies that aren't a registered psych. So there's sort of three directions you can take. And I guess as we're implying, there's a lot of overlap between the two programs, but there's just some minor differences around the edges as well.
Thanks, Belinda.
I really like, Belinda, the way you've kind of described it in that way. And from my experience, it seems that I absolutely agree with you. I think there may be some similar jobs, certainly, because of the psychology sequence, for example, undertaken by the students. But I think there may be some subtle differences too, as you've highlighted, around the electives, also around the placements that students undertake. Often these placements are really good ways for, not just for the student to gain industry knowledge, but also for the industry, for the organisation to get to know the student. And sometimes our students are offered jobs from the within the organisations into which they undertake the placements, because the organisation perceives them to be a wonderful fit for them. So that's just something to also think about. But I absolutely agree with something else you said, Belinda. I would say anecdotally about 50% of our students go on to undertake further postgraduate training in either psychology or in related fields, as you've said, social work, youth work, or any other kind of related fields. And the other 50% consider the psychology degree as a really sort of good foundational degree to then go out and work. So there's a mixture really of kind of beyond the degree, what it can look like, with lots and lots of options. But in some ways, I think that makes it even more exciting too.
Thanks, Sophia. Thanks, Belinda. We've got another question here that I think some people might have on their minds as well. And again, sorry, this is a question for you, Sophia. If I don't go into masters, am I still able to work as a psychologist?
That's a good question, Russell. From next year on, people will be absolutely encouraged to undertake postgraduate training in order to become registered as a psychologist. So it'll be honours as well as a master's degree that will be required for full registration. However, some people go on to do psych-related work with their undergraduate degree. So in terms of registration, yes, absolutely, postgraduate training and study is needed.
Thank you, Sophia. We've got another question here, and it's more about teaching delivery. So the question is, what are the classroom size and structure like? Maybe I'll answer this one. And I mainly teach within psychology and within the accredited sequence. So if Belinda wants to add anything to it that maybe I've missed in the social science sequence, maybe if you could add to it after I've spoken. But generally speaking, we run classrooms. So we basically have lecture material, which is disseminated in terms of pre-recordings, in terms of the core material. And then we may have lectorials. Now, lectorials are meant to be something between a tutorial and a lecture size. So they are often like larger types of groups. So they can be groups of about, I think we cap them at about 90, and they can be on campus in a theatre, or they can be online. Okay, those lectorials. But typically the material that complements our core learning material is what we call tutorials. And they're normally in groups of about 40, and they're run parallel on campus and online. So if we aren't able to run things on campus, we have equivalent online. And under normal circumstances where there isn't COVID restricting us, students would have a choice between either attending an online tutorial or an on-campus tutorial. But unfortunately, under COVID circumstances, we all have the only have the online choice to make. And we always make sure that we have, for all our students, we have the option for them to either engage the material online, or when there's face-to-face opportunities, they can come onto campus. Belinda, is there anything you'd like to add on top of that in terms of maybe the social sciences subjects, if they run slightly differently, maybe?
Yeah, I was just thinking one more thing I'll add. I mean, there's maybe some slight differences with social sciences. I don't think we probably have as much online as applied science, because we put the social in social science, and it's important to have those face-to-face conversations and debates where we can. But I do think across RMIT, this actually also gets to a point that's really distinct about RMIT, and that is that we attract really diverse students. So being a university that's right in the centre of the city, we just get a really diverse array of students in the room. So we get school leavers, we get mature age, we get people from all over Melbourne, we get people from rural, we get people from overseas. And we see that as a real advantage in the classroom. So the way we teach at RMIT is we try and see, we see that diversity as adding value to the learning experience. And we really work so that everybody feels included and welcome, and an important part of our psychology programs and being at RMIT.
Thanks, Belinda. I've got another question here, and it's regarding, can I study the applied science course at the Melbourne City campus? So we offer applied sciences psychology and also social sciences psychology, criminology psychology, and a double degree are all offered on the City campus. With the applied sciences psychology program, you can have an option to do the first year at the Bundoora campus and then the subsequent years at the City campus. Another thing I've noticed as well in terms of students asking about where classes are offered and online, and some people have also mentioned that they've done some partial study previously and asking about credit towards completing psychology. I think another thing that you may want to look at as well is we now have a diploma of psychology online via RMIT Online. So if you've already got a degree and you're looking to add psychology to your repertoire, a graduate diploma in psychology via RMIT Online might be an option for you, rather than redoing a whole bachelor's degree. So check that out if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, there's a question regarding.
Russell,
could you please?
Russell, do you mind, sorry, if I maybe just talk a little bit about what you just said with that online degree? Sorry, I think we're all just very excited about this new degree, alongside the ones offered applied science through applied science and social science psychology. We've also got the new RMIT online degree, the Grad Dip in Psychology. And as you said, Russell, that's for those students who have perhaps undertaken studies somewhere else in another discipline and are wanting to rethink a career in psychology. This is a way to kind of fast track those studies. This degree is offered through RMIT-O, so online, and it's done purely online. And that's a really important one. And it's a new degree, and we are currently seeking accreditation for this degree, which means that it will be, once it has formal accreditation, which we have we absolutely believe that this will happen. What will happen then is that will offer students another pathway into postgraduate psychology, so honours and masters, etc. So it's just another option for those interested in studying psychology that's new. Sorry, Russell, I just wanted to add a bit more info there.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much, Sophia. That's really good because the students are obviously, it helps if you know a little bit more details. Actually, speaking of more details, I've got a couple of questions here, just asking for a little bit more elaboration on the job opportunities after the two sequences in psychology. So maybe we could talk a little bit more about that. So basically, because psychology is a very broad discipline, what you find is those skill sets get applied in very wide range of areas. So typically, if you think of lots of different jobs and careers, very few of them don't involve working with humans. And because that's the case, psychology skills are valued in a wide range of areas. Like, for example, it was just a bit more over a month ago, I bumped into an ex-student at RMIT that was working in the banking industry, done a 3-year sequence, and just bumped into me in the street and said, "How are you, Russell?" And because a lot of students do psychology, I went, "Well, good. Oh yeah, I remember you." And basically what she was explaining to me was that she had worked up through the banking industry, and the banking industry is now recognizing that understanding human behavior and understanding people and working with people in terms of devising plans and working towards paying off home loans is a really important aspect of banking. So she's been using her psychology experience to help train other home loan consultants and stuff like that, and the human factors related to dealing with people with planning, repayments, and all that type of stuff. So you'd be surprised how broadly psychology gets paired up with a wide range of things. So we've mentioned some things in terms of, you know, government placed positions and some private sectors, but you'd be very surprised how widely psychology gets applied in a wide range of disciplines. Sophia and Belinda, do you want to add any more to that? It's just that I've had 2 more comments just along those lines, and I just thought I'd elaborate a little bit more. Anything you guys would like to add?
I guess Belinda here. A couple of things that I've probably mentioned. I do know, just anecdotally, like Russell, that graduates do go straight into government work, so Victorian government agencies in different types of roles, Department of Justice, Department of Fairness, Family Services, Housing. I can't quite remember the name of that new department. So there's all sorts of directions you can go in, and certainly we do have students who are interested in the business sector and will go into sort of that more organisational psych, human resources type opportunities as well. So as Russell said, it's really diverse, yeah.
And I might add to that, Russ and Belinda, I think it certainly is diverse. I think about those really important communication skills and interpersonal skills that our students really fine-tune over the course of their undergraduate psychology degree, and things like teamwork, things like being able to critically evaluate a particular issue or topic, look for evidence. They're the kinds of skills that often people in organisations really value in our students. Many of our students, I would say anecdotally, get jobs in things like government departments, in community organisations, in the corporate sector, in business. So absolutely agree with you, Belinda, some of the examples you gave there. Very diverse fields.
Thanks, Sophia. Another question we have is, do the tutors have a teaching qualification? Are the tutors mostly PhD master's students? It's interesting you asked that, because I've been doing interviews for our casual tutor staff just this week. No, not necessarily. We select our casual staff and our tutor staff just like we select all of our other staff through an interview process, and we select the most suitable candidates. Now, it may be that some of our PhD students may apply for those positions, but generally it's on a competitive basis, and we look for people with experience that have got good previous student ratings and feedback. And it's basically a selection process like any other job. So we ensure that we have the highest quality tutors available, and they're not necessarily people that are RMIT graduate students. We have a wide variety of tutors. A lot of our tutors actually have become people that are in private practice, that are psychologists working out in the workforce, and they're interested in engaging university and they like teaching. So what you'll find is a lot of our teachers are actually psychologists that are doing a bit of work in university just to mix things up, and they're interested in academia. And that's what we've been finding when we've been interviewing for our casual staff. So yes, our tutors are very highly qualified in most instances, and always get very good student feedback, and we select them on a competitive basis annually. So we maintain the highest teaching standards as we can. There's another question here, and maybe this might be another one that maybe Belinda could answer for social sciences and then Sophia answer for applied sciences psychology. And that is, do you get a choice between placements like with internships, or do you just get placed randomly? I think that's a good question because a lot of students often have that in mind and not too sure about what might be in store for them for their placement subject.
Thanks, Russell. Yes, I agree. It's a good question. It's a really important question. So in the social science program, we have a field education coordinator who often we have partnerships with particular organisations and agencies who give us placements every year. And then a whole lot of placements are advertised at one time to the students, and then you actually apply for your preferred placements, sort of similar to applying for a job, because we actually want you to develop those skills in applying for jobs as well. However, we guarantee that every student will get a placement, but there certainly is choice. And another thing I'll say just before I pass on to Sophia is that the way that the placements work between the two programs, they happen in first semester in social science and second semester in applied science. So actually we share some of the placements. So we some of the opportunities that come up in first semester, the social science students will get, and then the opportunities in second semester go to the applied science. So some of them we actually have the same placement opportunities.
Thank you, Belinda, and thanks, Russell. I would also like to just add to that, Belinda, too. I agree. I think we do our best, as best as we can, to encourage our students to have input about which particular placements and organisations they would like, depending on their own personal interests. And we certainly try to match that with placement availability. Now, we can't always guarantee that, but it's something that we do really try to spend quite a bit of time on. And the WHEEL team supports our students with that to try and match that. That's something that's really important. Russell, I just wanted to add a comment too. You mentioned earlier the importance that we place on selecting really good staff, including tutors who are really engaging with our students and who are experienced. And the experience is both in the classroom, as you said, with kind of being able to engage our students and also having the appropriate qualifications and study behind them, but also those tutors having real world experience, say, for example, private practice or other sort of organisational experience, and bringing that into the classroom, because we know our students love when we share real world examples. But I think what's also important is that in many of our courses that we also really focus on research that's being undertaken within our discipline and within the school. All the staff are committed not just to the students and providing a really good experience for the students, but also undertaking important research with impact. And we certainly take pride in that. And across both our discipline and Belinda's discipline, there's lots of research undertaken actively by staff who are committed to kind of having impact. So I think if people are interested in coming to RMIT, do have a look at the research interests and research backgrounds of staff. Really important. Many staff will share their research interests in classes and talk to students about that. But just something to be aware of, that alongside teaching, our research is very important. I'm just aware of time here, so back, Russell, over to you.
Yeah, just building on that, when you get lectures from Sophia, she actually talks about her own amazing research. And I'm sure Belinda talks about her research as well. I like to trumpet my own horn a little bit when I talk about biological psychology. We all do real world, world-class research here at RMIT. And when you learn about it, you'll also learn about what's actually going on in our university. And you'd be amazed with the innovation and just leaps forward in terms of technology, in terms of engaging the latest and greatest we have in RMIT, not just within our walls, but with international collaborations as well. So you'll get quite a contemporary, at the forefront view of what's going on in psychology and in social sciences and in sciences when you learn here at RMIT, because the people that are teaching to you are actually involved in the research that's going on at the time. Now, I think we're kind of come to time now. I'd like to thank everyone for coming along today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. We're hoping to see a lot more of you in the future, hopefully face to face rather than like this. But at the same time, we're working hard to make this method of communicating with our students the best we can possibly make it as well. So unless there's any last minute questions that have come up on a chat, which I don't think there has, I'd like to wish everyone the best. There are contact details provided, so by all means, don't feel that this is over and we're suddenly going to become strangers. If you want to reach out to us, there's plenty of contact details available. I often, when I go to something, I go, oh, I wish I should have asked that, afterwards. That's fine. Reach out via the contact details and get in contact with us. Reach out. If you've got those questions, ask them, and we'll make sure we get back to you as soon as possible with any questions that you have that pop up in your head afterwards when you think, oh, I should have put that in the chat. By all means, you can still get it answered. But thanks a lot for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you get the opportunity to talk to you again in the future. Belinda, Sophia, is there any last things you'd like to add?
Russell, you've just encapsulated it so well. I absolutely agree. We look forward to seeing all of you at RMIT Psychology. We are a dedicated team. We love psychology. I'm going to be a bit cheeky and say here the world needs more psychologists. So please do consider coming to study with us. We look forward to seeing you. Over to you, Belinda.
Yes, thanks for listening to our webinar today. I hope you've gotten a really good sense of how psychology at RMIT is distinct. We're very, very contemporary, very industry connected. We're friendly. And I really hope that the first steps on your psychology degree are exciting ones for you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.